Hello, guys, all you lovely, lovely people out there. And you could have clicked on somebody else's channel, but you've clicked on mine. So thank you very much. So, before I start, if you have not subscribed, um, please do so. But watch till the end of the video, and then you can decide if you want to or not. It's free. So, oh, and don't forget to like and share also. Right. Those who follow me, you'll see I've been posting a few joke videos this last few days. So this is something more serious, more serious topic. Um, we always hear, we've been hearing it again lately from other channels, mostly Brits. Um, Again, so I'm not saying anything bad about Americans. This is just something that happens. If something comes up about the war or the World War II or anything that's Americans, Brits, or Brits against Americans, the Americans always, and they do, always go, if it was not for us, you would have lost the war and you would all be talking German. Ha, ha, ha. Um, it might have been. Who knows? Um, was the war won just because the Americans was there? No. The war was won because all the Allies all got together and worked as a team. Of course, if the Americans was there, it made the team then. It's like a football team. So you get a forward that's more better than the other ones. It gives you more possibilities, strengthens the team, right? Or am I wrong? So I was thinking today, what if America did not help and the war was lost to the Germans? You never hear this, do you? All you hear is, oh, yeah, the Americans, they won the war. If it wasn't for them, the war would have been lost. What if the war would have been lost? Not that all the Brits would be talking German now. Not talking about that. So if the war was lost, Germany would have took Britain. It would have then kept France, Belgium, Holland, Poland. Could they have gone to then Russia and took Russia? Who knows? This is the thing. What happened, or what would have happened if they could have done? What would it have been like today? So all of Europe, we're talking German. Ganze Europa wird jetzt Deutsch sprechen. Ah. Germany over everyone, over all the world. That's still their national anthem, by the way. So I think I wrote in a comment today. So it would have been, it would not be Europe. It would have been Deutschland, Germany, one Germany, a united Deutschland. Wir sind eins, ein Riesenvolk. it would have been one currency, the Deutschmark. If they would have won the war, we wouldn't have all this problem with the euro, the pound, the whatever, or before the lira and all the different currencies. We wouldn't have had that. It would have been all Deutschmark. How would it have been, all of Europe? So here comes. Think about it. How would that have affected America? Ah, would America have been better off not going to the war and letting Germany take over the Europe and the UK? Why did the Americans go to the war and help? Why? They could have said, "No thanks, your problem. You get on with it." It's a big piece of water between us, right? It's like most of the wars around the world, far, far away from America, but they're always there. Why? But anyway, that's something different. So yeah, everything would have been completely different. Also, America in some way, right? America would not be the same as today if Adolf had taken all of the eastern countries. I'm talking now from the American side. So Britannia, West Europe, East Europe, Russia, and then you even saw in the war they even went down into the Middle East. That's another story. What we're talking about is now what would have happened if the Americans would not have helped, and if the Germans would have took the UK. How would that have influenced in Europe and America? We don't know. So, AI, artificial intelligence. So, what I done was I put these questions and the titles into artificial intelligence to see what he would come up with, or it, or her, or whatever it is. Shall we call it it? We call it it. You have to be careful these days. Maybe the artificial intelligence will come, I am. Anyway, so I'll put this up on the screen for you. What is artificial intelligence? Right. I'll put it on the screen so you can. Artificial intelligence refers to the simulation of human intelligence in machines that are programmed to think and learn like humans. These systems can perform tasks that typically require human intelligence. What happens if the human is not so intelligent? Such as learning, problem solving, and decision making. AI encompasses a wide range of technologies that enable computers to perform advanced functions like understanding language, analyzing data, and making recommendations. Right, that is AI. What is AI? So, and then it told you a little bit. Where does the AI get all the information from? So again, I'll put this on the screen for you. AI systems primarily get their information from vast amounts of data. So it's humans that are putting data into the AI, which is used to train their algorithms and enable them to learn and perform tasks. This data can come from a variety of sources, including the internet, public data sets, customer interactions, and even synthetic data generation. Right. So, can AI think for itself? For example, we put like you use an AI program. So you get the program, you put a heading or a title, put a few words, and then all it does then is takes that. So I don't know if I'm 100% right. Maybe I'm not. I'm not an AI specialist, or I'm just going now from what it just told me here and what I've been saying the last few days while I've been using this AI. So all it does is take the words that you've been using or you give it, puts that in its system, and then, right, oh, like World War II. It'll have a little folder or something, World War II. And then it will stick in there, another word, then, and it'll just go. So that's what I've done. In the AI program, I put, what if the Germans won World War II? It's exactly what I've just been talking about before. And it was very interesting. Actually, it was sort of what I was sort of thinking what would have happened. One interesting thing, it did note the Americans could have dropped a bomb on an atom bomb on Germany. But as we all know, the World War II finished in 1944, June 1944. America didn't have any atom bombs, June 1944. So they would have had to have waited. So this is the thing. Maybe they discussed this before. Shall we send all these hundreds of thousands of troops over that they're going to lose their lives, but it'll stop Germany from invading Britain? And then drop a bomb later, because this is the first atom bombs that America had to use was in 1945, which they then used in Japan, which ended in the Japan War. So it was either, yeah, we'll wait a year or whatever, let the Germans take Britain, but then we'll drop a couple of bombs on them. Or, like I said, we'll send hundreds and thousands of American troops over there to die, which they did. So something also, something to think about. Because 1 year later, they dropped two atom bombs on Japan, which stopped that war. Anyway, so I'll finish rabbiting on now, and I will play you now what the AI gave to me right now. So thanks for listening to me now. please stop. I must add, in the AI, there's a couple of bits where the pictures are missing. It was giving me they couldn't get a picture for that position. So there's a couple of blank screens, but the writing's still there. So sorry for that. So the AI is not so good as they say. Still needs a bit of improvement. So I'll shut up now and I'll play the AI. Please sit and listen because it's very, very interesting. So thank you very much now, and I'll see you again then on my next video and on my next live. And please feel free to write any comments to see. You tell me, how do you think the world would have ended if the Germans had successfully invaded the UK and the Americans would have stopped at home and saved hundreds and thousands of lives? So thank you, guys. Let's get to the AI video. Bye now.
In June of 1944, Allied troops took to the beaches of Normandy. France did begin liberating Western Europe from Nazi control. But what if the Axis powers had won the war? What if Germany had taken the crown as the most powerful nation in the world? Well, here are some crazy ways that would have gone down. Germans invade Europe. After the Polish campaign, Hitler's strategy was to avoid a direct confrontation with Britain by focusing on the Soviet Union, hoping to defeat them first before turning his attention to the West. The British, however, were able to remain in the fight thanks to their naval supremacy, which allowed them to supply the Soviets and continue bombing Germany. But if the Germans had crushed Poland more decisively, there was a good chance that Britain would have been in serious trouble. In this scenario, let's say that the Germans had managed to reach the Vistula River without losing any time. They could have then easily crushed the remaining Polish forces and gained access to vital resources in the east. With the Eastern Front secured, Hitler could have turned his attention back to Britain much earlier. And if he had done so, it's entirely possible that Germany's air force would have been able to bomb London into submission. After all, during the Battle of Britain, the Luftwaffe came very close to defeating the Royal Air Force, which would have paved the way for a German invasion. The only reason why they lost was because they didn't have enough resources to keep up their high casualty rates. But with a longer time frame, it's likely that Germany would have eventually been able to grind out a victory. And once the RAF was defeated, Churchill would have had no choice but to surrender. The royal family goes into exile. After the British surrender, King George VI would have either been forced to flee or imprisoned. He would have almost certainly abdicated the throne, allowing his daughter, Princess Elizabeth, to take over instead. This would have made her the figurehead of the British Empire in exile. Though without Britain's vast colonial empire, the war against the Germans would have been a lot more difficult, especially considering that the colonies wouldn't have provided much in the way of resources. Nevertheless, it would have been a symbolic victory for the Allies. A new world order. With Britain out of the picture, the rest of the Allied powers would have had a much harder time fighting the Germans. Even with their combined forces, it's unlikely that they would have been able to win the war, at least not without the industrial might of the United States. But when America did enter the war after Pearl Harbor, the outcome of the conflict was essentially predetermined. However, if Germany had beaten Britain, the US may have never entered the war at all. You see, many Americans felt that the conflict in Europe was none of their concern, and that the best course of action was to remain neutral. Only after the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor did public opinion turn around. Had Germany managed to defeat Britain, it's quite possible that isolationist sentiment would have continued to dominate American politics, and that the US would have simply stayed out of the war altogether. If that had happened, then the Germans would have created a new world order, led by Adolf Hitler. The future of Europe. In our timeline, one of the main reasons why the Germans lost the war was because they failed to take Moscow. But what if they had managed to do so? If that had happened, it's likely that the Red Army would have collapsed, which would have opened the door for the Germans to march across Russia. In fact, Soviet leader Joseph Stalin may have even orchestrated a coup d'etat, blaming the military leadership for the catastrophic losses and taking control of the country himself. It is not out of the realm of possibility that Stalin may have been able to negotiate a peace treaty with the Germans, ceding Eastern Europe to them in exchange for ending the war. If that had occurred, then Germany would have become the dominant power in Europe, and seeing as Russia would have been crippled by internal strife, no other nation would have been able to challenge them for decades to come. A German-controlled UK. If Germany had managed to successfully invade and occupy the UK, the entire political landscape of the country would have been completely The ruling class would have been replaced by a German puppet government, which would have brought about a period of intense oppression and ethnic cleansing. Anyone who opposed the Nazis would have been imprisoned, executed, or sent to concentration camps. The House of Windsor would likely have been wiped out, with their lands confiscated and given to loyal German supporters. A German governor-general would have been put in place to oversee the country. Similar to the occupation of France, resistance fighters would have been hunted down relentlessly, just as they were in the original timeline. But unlike the original timeline, there wouldn't have been any massive D-Day invasion to liberate England. Instead, the British people would have been stuck under the oppressive rule of the Nazis until the end of the war. But how would they have treated England compared to other occupied countries? To answer this question, we need to look at the treatment of Belgium. Much like England, Belgium was a neutral country before the war, and unlike France, they weren't able to mount any serious resistance against the Germans. For that reason, the Nazis didn't go easy on them. They still looted and pillaged across the country, executing those who resisted. Had this been England, it would have been far worse though, because the English were known for being stubborn and unyielding. The king would have likely been forced to abdicate the throne, while resistance fighters would have been hunted down and eliminated. America loses the war. In our own timeline, it was the dropping of the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki that finally forced Japan to surrender. But what if the Germans had won the war? Then it's entirely possible that the US may have used the atomic weapons on German soil, although by that point, it's likely that the war would have ended in a stalemate, with neither side able to achieve a decisive victory. The US may have seen the use of the bomb as the only way to bring the conflict to a swift conclusion. Alternatively, the Germans may have actually managed to steal the plans to build an atomic weapon, although that is unlikely. Either way, the bombings would have devastated Germany, bringing an end to World War II once and for all. But it would have left the US severely weakened in the process. As such, the Germans would have been able to occupy the country, ending American involvement in world politics for a generation. The rise of the Third Reich. With the rest of the world defeated, the Germans would have begun the daunting task of occupying and controlling their newly acquired territories. They would have established a series of puppet states across Western Europe, which would serve as a buffer zone between them and the Soviets. In France, they would have installed a new government under the leadership of Philippe, who would continue to crack down on resistance fighters. Meanwhile, in Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg, a harsh military occupation would have been imposed. But despite their efforts, there's a good chance that resistance would have continued to plague the Germans for years to come. They would have responded by committing atrocities against the local populations, resulting in a long and costly occupation. As such, it is entirely possible that the Germans would have lost interest in trying to hold on to their foreign territories. Instead, they would have focused on consolidating their power over Central Europe, creating a massive German empire that stretched from the Atlantic Ocean to the Europe. Do you think the Germans could have won World War II? Comment your thoughts down below. And don't forget to subscribe for more videos like these. Thanks for watching.